What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of stuff that may work but probably won't work, but we'll find out if it does work. So I have been trying to make this video since like midweek last week. I thought I had it figured out. What I ended up doing didn't work. Now I have another solution. I'm waiting on parts to come in for it. So I'm going to show you guys what I thought would work as an angle kit on the 3000.
So right here, what we have, this one right here, is the original tie rod from my car. And originally I was just going to replace them, but this tie rod has 200,000 miles on it. And in the video that I made that I never even put out, I painted it, but has 200,000 miles on it, and the inner tie rod is still pretty firm. So I was like, okay, I'll reuse this. The outer tie rod that I replaced around this time last year, the boot was already ripped and a mess. Granted, it was still good, it's just, it was making a mess. So I pulled this out of the car and I figured there's enough threads on here that I could ultimately make my own tie rod spacer. So for angle kits, a lot of guys will buy tie rod spacers and it spaces it out from the rack that gives you a little bit more push when the rack is at full lock. So I got 3 washers that were big enough to fit over the M16 threads that go into the rack. So you slide these guys on and there you go. You still have enough threads to grab in the rack. So what I did is I used red Loctite on these threads. I put it in the rack and it got me this much space away from the rack. So I got some more angle. Wheel didn't rub or anything. So I was like, okay, cool. Tightened everything down, put a new boot on the tie rod. Then I ran into the next issue. So once I put it all back on, I had to get the toe in spec. So basically what happened was, this is a 13.5-inch inner tie rod, the stock tie rod for the 3000s. With this tie rod bottomed out in the outer, what was happening was, because I was spacing the tie rod out this much, there wasn't enough room inside the inner tie rod for me to get the toe in spec. So with this bottomed all the way down on the threads, it was still toed in a little bit. So then I realized I need to figure out a solution for this. I need a shorter inner tie rod. Now, it's not like a 240 or something where I can just, there's plenty of options for me to get a shorter tie rod and things like that. So I had to do some research and figure out what car shares the same thread pitch going into the rack. 240s and stuff I think are M14s. I needed an M16. So I was able to source a tie rod from another car that is the same thread pitch going into the rack. Slightly shorter threads, but I think we'll still be okay there. The only difference is that the tie rod threads going into the inner to the outer are M12. These are M14s. So this is a bit thicker of a tie rod. So I wouldn't be able to use the 3000 GT outers. So I had to get outers for that specific car and hope that they worked. Now I got them, and I believe, looking at this piece right here and this piece right here, I believe that they're the same size. I'm gonna measure them for real with like a little caliper gauge just to make sure they're the same and that they will work in the knuckles basically the same way. But the difference here is that this tie rod is 12.5 inches long. So it's 1 inch shorter than the 3000 GT tie rod. Now the only difference is, if you check out the amount of threads that are there still showing with these washers, and I slide them on here, there are a couple less threads, but there's still plenty of threads to go into the rack, especially if you're using Loctite. But then the next issue was raised. Because these washers are so big in diameter, I'll give you a better view here. Because they're such a big diameter, when I was turning to the right, it was pushing out, which was giving me plenty of angle. But then when you would turn left, this would actually hit the outside of the rack and it would actually prevent it from going any further, and it was actually hindering the amount of angle that I was getting. So then at that point I realized that my washer method was not going to work. $1.50 for these washers, not too mad about it. This is a big trial and error thing, and that was an error. So next I reached out to a company called Villains Drift, and they sell rack spacers for FCRX7s and 240s. So I gave them the specs that I needed for the rack spacer, and I bought some rack spacers from them. So they haven't gotten here yet. They should be here maybe tomorrow or Tuesday. And I was really hoping they would be here for the weekend, but they're basically a 4mm rack spacer, which I think would be about the equivalent of 2 of these washers, maybe 2.5. So that'll still leave me with plenty of threads to go into the rack with. And they're a small diameter so that they allow when I turn left, they allow the tie rod end to go into the rack more. Basically, this kit that I'm going to be putting together should hopefully give me another maybe 10 degrees more of angle. Not really positive on that because no one has ever done it. And I think we're going to take some measurements of a before and after so that we can show you guys, you know, what kind of angle we get stock versus what kind of angle we get with this tie rod setup and a Villains tie rod spacer. And then after we test it at the track, so if we can get this all together, after we test it at the track at the end of this month, we're probably going to put together a kit that we're going to offer to people with 3000s that are looking for a little bit more steering angle. So that, I mean, you don't need more steering angle just if you're drifting. I mean, even for just street driving, these cars have terrible steering angle from the factory. So if we can get a solution for you guys that will give your cars a little bit more steering angle, I might start selling these kits for you guys on, you know, a direct fit solution to getting some more angle out of your 3000. So I think today what I'm going to do, since we're still waiting on the rest of the spacers, I measured it out, and 4mm is just about 2 of these washers. So what I'm going to do is we're going to measure how much steering angle these 2 washers give you going from a stock tie rod to the shortened tie rod so that we can get it close to in spec. And then we'll see how much we can get the wheel to be from straight to turn in. You know, in true fashion up here in PA, we got like 6 inches of snow Friday. It's for the most part gone, but it's cold again. Just when we thought spring was coming, we had the car meet 2 weeks ago. Not the case. Had to bust this bad boy out last night, or Friday night, and you know, clean up a ton of snow. But I was able to get some work done in the garage. Alright, so I was going to pop this wheel off and throw a tie rod in, but I think what I'm going to do first, I'm going to see how much angle I can get out of this setup with no tie rod attached. So basically with the wheel bottomed out in the wheel well, I'm going to see how much steering angle I can get. So to do that, it'll basically just be me going like this. But with that, we'll drop a tape line. And now I'll pop this wheel off so we can throw the stock tie rod in and basically get our number, like our stock number. And then we'll see with the new tie rod where it puts us. All right, so tie rod, stock tie rod, no spacer, like it would be from the factory. We're gonna screw it in. Now these are rough measurements, guys, because obviously me eyeing up the alignment isn't gonna get it perfect, but you basically get a general idea on how this can improve your steering. Now what I'm going to do is twist the tie rod and so that I can get the knuckle straight as I can see it to be, because the other wheel is straight right now. Stock tie rod. We're gonna go full lock. We'll lower it down. Stock tie rod. All right, so here we are. There's your max angle with 10.5s bottomed out against the inner fender. There's your stock angle with a stock tie rod. So now it is time to swap in my mystery tie rod, inner outer tie rod. And for now, we're gonna use the 2 washers that replicate a 4mm spacer on these threads. Now, I'm gonna disassemble and throw this guy in. I'm not gonna bore you guys with it. So let's see how our spaced out setup works. My phone died and I lost a lot. So here we have the tape lines for the angle. Now, this is angle making a right. Once I get the rack spacers, I'm going to do another measurement angle turning left, which I think that's where we're going to see more of a difference. And I believe that Ackerman is the reason why you might not see as much of a difference turning this way, but you're going to see more of a difference turning this way. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's kind of a weird subject that I've been trying to research. But here we have our baseline straight, our max angle with the 10.5s, our angle with the spacers and the special tie rods, and then our stock angle. So as you can see, there's a little bit more angle going from the stock to the spacer, and we are essentially going to want to obtain that max angle, maybe even more, because I do plan on getting a shorter, or a skinnier wheel for the front here, like a 9.5-inch Pt.1. So you might see a lot of guys talking about modded knuckles, and what they're basically talking about is right here is the tie rod pickup point. This is the passenger side knuckle. So this is the tie rod pickup point. So this is where it pushes and pulls to turn the car. So with it being out this far, what we basically do is cut, say 20mm out of this arm, and you're moving the pickup point closer to the knuckle itself. By doing that, basically what you're doing is the input into the steering wheel is pushing the knuckle further than when you're out here. The same range of motion will get you more angle because you're closer to the knuckle itself.
So literally today I spent the whole day working on really not even my own car. I rotated the tires on the Trailblazer, had some stripped lug nuts because it had the inverted lug nuts. Those things are terrible. Never buy them. Buy regular lug nuts, like the tuner. I love the Muteki tuner for SR48 lug nuts, the open end, or you can get the closed end, but never buy inverted lug nuts with a spline drive. Actually, I think I have it in my pocket here. These things are terrible. And not only were they stripped, the lug nuts were stripped, but the key itself rounded off very easily. Now, I don't use guns, like impact guns, on wheels. I do it all by hand. But when you take your car to a shop for inspection, they pull it off the wheels, they use a gun, they throw them back on. They're super tight. I always use a torque gun to torque my stuff down to about 85 foot-pounds or 90, in that range. So because basically what that left me with today was 2 extended sockets with lug nuts stuck in them. So I'm gonna have to put these in a vise, which I don't have here, but I'm gonna have to put these in a vise and hammer these things out. That is kind of a pain. But once we got that done, we kind of figured out what we're gonna have to do before a trip we're taking this summer. And that's what I'm gonna talk to you guys about now as well. So I know I'm sitting here wearing a beanie. It's cold and windy outside. We just got snow. We're getting more snow this week. But we got a trip planned for this summer. The week of 4th of July, we're going to be driving down. So June 29th, it's a Friday, we're leaving to go to Florida. And we're going to go down. We're going to bring the 3000 with us So we're going to trailer down there with the Trailblazer, and we're going to stay for the week. We're going to go see Brendan, who you guys saw in the H2O video, the auto show video. Brendan lives in Florida. You saw us pick him up from the airport. So we're going to go down, we're going to see Brendan. It's his birthday on Saturday, the Saturday that we're going to get into town. And so we're going to go out and do all that. And then we're going to hit up some Florida car meets and do some Florida car things down there. So I'm super stoked for that trip. Once those rack spacers, the 4mm little slip-on rack spacers come in, hopefully maybe tomorrow or Tuesday, I am going to get the things installed. So we'll make an install video for them. We'll install them on both sides, and I'm gonna show you guys the whole process of installing them. I want to recenter the steering rack, which is something I had no idea that was a thing, but then after looking into it, I kind of figured out it was a thing. I'm gonna try and recenter the steering rack, line this thing up, get the toe set as straight as possible, and then we're probably going to end up taking it over to Tyler, and he's going to align it on his rack. So you're probably going to see this before I even hit you up about an alignment, but yeah, I'm coming. This is coming for you finally. I've been telling him I'm bringing the 3000 to get aligned down there for months now, even before H2O. So thank you for watching, guys. If you like this video, press the little thumbs up. Give me that thumbs up to give me some motivation to get this done during the week, because it's gonna snow and I'm not even gonna want to come out here. The thought of having to turn the heaters on sucks. But subscribe to the channel. We just hit 600 subscribers, which is cool. It's not huge, but it's definitely cool. Within less than a year that we started making these videos, you know, we climbed just over 500 subscribers. So shout out to you guys that subscribe to the channel and watch the channel and all that. So I'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna cut it here. I've been talking for too long. See you guys.